But one issue that's been going on for a while and is firing up again is the Aged Care Royal Commission. Now, Ian Henschke from National Seniors Australia has been all over this. Good to talk to you again, Ian. What's happening now? Where are we at with the Royal Commission? I want to come back to the government's response in a moment, but where are we at right now?
Well, look, Chris, I just want to say to you at this point, because we're almost in the festive season, and I want to thank Sky News very much for your coverage throughout this year, because we were there on day one of the Royal Commission in Adelaide, which is where I'm talking to you today from, and that was back on the 31st of January. So we've actually seen this Royal Commission unfold throughout the year, and of course what we're seeing now is some of the discussion papers that are being put forward, because originally this Royal Commission was supposed to conclude in April. It's now been extended till November next year. So I think we are holding a lot of hopes for it, and this discussion paper that's just been released is talking about, now this is why I really like what they're saying. They're saying that this system is fundamentally broken and has to be redesigned. And the actual words they used is they said it needs to be redesigned, not patched up. Now, that is a really interesting thing to look at, because there have been so many reports into aged care over the years, and they've looked at those reports, and what they've realised is that there is actually a structural problem with the way we're doing aged care, and it comes down to some of the fundamentals, the amount of money that goes into residential care, for example. If you look at the Commonwealth Home Support Program, which is, it actually deals with 850,000 Australians get help through that. So about 1 in 3 people in the system is actually using it, and so there's 1.3 million people in the system. So the 2/3 of the people are using a Commonwealth Home Support Program, 2/3 of the people, and yet it only accounts for about 10% of the funding. So you can see that when the Royal Commission's now starting to look at some of the fundamentals of the system, you actually have to say, well, could we be doing things better and differently? And that's why I think this paper that's just been put out for discussion is so important, and they're asking people to provide answers by the 24th of January. So I'm sorry, if you're planning on having a holiday and you're working in this area, you'll be working over Christmas, but it's really important that if people are watching this out there and they want to provide some information, those that have been receiving home care, for example, those that have been getting Commonwealth Home Support Program packages, those ones, they can actually put into this Royal Commission, and so they just go to the website and have a look.
Well, while we're doing end-of-year thanks, Ian, I point out that you've been a leading advocate on this all year. You've been on top of the issues. You've always been willing to come here and talk about the issues with us, and we appreciate that. And I would go back to the very first conversations I had with you on air, and you were already targeting what the key issues were, what the government needed to do. And one of the key points you always made from the outset was we needed to see more home care packages, more people cared for in their home in the aged care system. Now, the government the other week announced its interim response, or its response to the interim report of the Royal Commission, almost $500 million in home care packages there. Obviously, you would welcome that, but how much more is needed to actually satisfy the demand that is there across Australia?
Well, one of the things that's curious about this is that one program, and I'll get back to that one again, that's called the Commonwealth Home Support Program. Now, that looks after 850,000 Australians at the moment. Now, that's the one where we've heard no complaints. There's been no one turning up at the Royal Commission saying this is a poor program, there's something wrong with this program. That's the program that, in a sense, is the entry level for aged care. And this is why this Royal Commission's been very interesting, because there are problems with the home care packages. There are real problems with them, because we've got level 1, level 2, level 3 and level 4. Now, we need more higher level packages. That's what we've been saying with National Seniors all year. You need that higher level of care where someone can stay out of aged care, residential care, if they want to stay in their own home. But down at that lower end, where you have the level 1 and level 2 packages, it seems that a lot of people are accessing Commonwealth Home Support programs, which are different. They're done in block funding. It's a completely different way. In fact, it's the old way, if you like, of the way they used to do aged care, and that's actually working really well. Now, in the last month, I've spoken to someone here in South Australia who's been working that area for 30 or 40 years, and I also spoke to someone in Canberra who was involved in setting up that program 40 years ago, and they both say that that is the area that is a successful area, and that's where someone comes in, they check you out, then you might get a higher assessment, and then they'll say, well, look, you need some rails in the bathroom so you don't fall over, you need a ramp so you can get in and out of the house, you may need some help with your meals, you may need a bit of nursing care, and that's that entry-level support that's so critical and so important. And perhaps what we might see coming out in the new year is a redesigning of the aged care system, and this is what this paper's talking about. Yep. How do we make sure that we get the best bang for our buck? And if you think about this, the 850,000 people, which account for 2/3 of the people receiving aged care, are only getting 12% of the funding. So that is in this latest report. So it's saying that something is working well. What is not clearly working well is residential care. And look, I've just had a contact from one of our members today saying that they are in an aged care home in Canberra where they are being forced to sit with people with dementia, and they believe that they're being told to do this so they will help feed the demented patients. Now that's a form of, I would say, breaking down that person's rights. They want to sit with other people that they can talk to, not necessarily sitting with people who've got dementia and be feeding them. I mean, and we've encouraged them to tell that to the Royal Commission. So there are real problems in residential care. There are not so many problems at entry level in aged care, and perhaps we should be looking at more things like daycare, where people can be looked after in their own home, or in a daycare so that the carers can get respite. I think there's a lot of things that are being discovered or rediscovered here, and I think there is hope, and I do believe that as we move into the new year and the submissions come in for there, that we will see a better aged care system out of this, and that's my great hope for 2020. I think we're going to have some 2020 vision, if you pardon the pun.
Thanks very much for joining us, Ian.
Thank you very much indeed, and once again, Merry Christmas to you and all at Sky News who have covered this throughout the year. Thanks again.